I'm Mike Kamate.
I'm Jacob Tender.
Welcome to episode 12 of Bantha Fodder. I think let's dive right into it. We're talking about tradition today, and not in a. We're going to kind of break it down into a couple ideas, mainly just the idea of breaking tradition, because that seems to be the theme for the next year of Star Wars or so. You know,
right? The next Star Wars movie that's coming out is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It's a standalone movie. This is the first standalone movie, and it is coming out on the 16th of December, which is only 2 months away, which is crazy.
Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah.
I haven't watched the trailer since the last one. Remember the one? Okay,
so we dissected a teaser trailer, and you didn't watch the follow-up trailer?
No, and anybody who really wants a great look at the insanity of Jacob Tender and his gift-making abilities, please just jump back a few episodes in the queue and go listen to that podcast right now. Just go do it, because Jake brought that trailer to its knees, just dissecting that thing, and he saw things that I could never see, and now I can't unsee them. You know.
And since then, they've apparently re-recorded a ton of the shots that were in that trailer.
Bummer. But yeah, I haven't watched the new trailers that have come out since then.
Well, that's a drag. I watched the sizzle reel at Celebration a couple times.
What's a sizzle reel?
Sizzle reel is essentially just something that they'll play at like a convention or something to sort of get people excited. It's mostly like production shots, so kind of like the camera's more focused on the director and the cameras and the crew, but it's kind of interspliced with various clips from the movie. Nothing too substantial. It's just kind of like cool shots. So you'll see them recording something on a ship, and then they'll break into that actual clip on the ship, that kind of thing.
Okay, I see. Okay, so it's like just production, just to let people know this movie's being made.
Exactly. Yeah, just to kind of give like that like, look, a lot of this stuff is being done physically, and here are a couple new characters to tide you over until the full trailer. And then what happened during that same panel when they showed that to the entire world was, at the end of it, they showed a brand new teaser for the movie. And should I spoil it for you or not?
No, don't ever spoil a thing for me. If the question is, should I spoil this for you? The answer is no.
Fair enough. Well, something cool happened in it, but nobody got to see it at home. You only got to see it if you were actually in the audience. So, of course, a few people broke the rules and recorded it on their cell phone.
Bastards.
It took me about 36 hours to get a copy of it from a guy who barely spoke English, but he got it to me.
Wait, where did you find this guy?
I got to watch
Where
it
did you find this guy?
See, I shouldn't spoil things for you, right? So I finally found this dude, and he sent me a copy of it. I got to watch it. It looked like it was shot on a potato, but I got the effect, and it was pretty cool. And then another trailer came out, and it wasn't the same thing. So I've seen quite a bit of this movie so far. I'm pretty stoked on it, and you're kind of the opposite because you're not watching anything.
Oh my God. Well, I'm going to be surprised by it, and you're not going to be surprised by it. So there.
What's left to be surprised about it? It's no spoiler that the Death Star plans get stolen.
But I want to be surprised by everything, you know?
Fair enough, Mike. That's why the show works. We're a little different.
Yeah, you and I are a little different. But, I mean, the news that came out back in July that kind of rattled a few cages.
This year's upcoming Rogue One will break the mold of the 7 Star Wars franchise titles that have preceded it by not including an opening crawl of text.
Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy said that she, quote, doesn't think the crawl will be featured in the films outside of the sequel trilogy.
Opening crawl, what have you guys come to a decision? What's happening?
You know, we're in the midst of talking about it, but I don't think these films will have an opening crawl.
The idea is this film is supposed to be different from the saga films.
And for those of you who aren't huge Star Wars fans that are listening to a Star Wars podcast, opening crawl, we know the big John Williams score, Star Wars fading back, big title card kind of retreating into space, pan down, yellow letters pan down to something. So the news broke a while back, but we've kind of just been digesting it since then.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that, Mike?
I guess I don't care. I want to keep my character consistent on this show, so So I just want to say I don't care, but I recognize that a lot of people do care or could possibly care. And that's what I'm really interested in. That's why this whole idea came to me about just we need to talk about tradition and breaking tradition in the context of Star Wars, because there's just so much happening.
This is a tough one. Personally, I like the crawl. I think the crawl is important to setting the tone, or not, to setting the stage for the movie that we're about to watch.
You know what? I think you're right with tone. I don't think you were incorrect. I think tone is like this is a space opera, and this is a super extravagant music that's going on with just like just a kind of giving you what you need to know before you dive into this crazy, weird fantasy world. And
in a way, it sets it apart from any other science fiction movie because this is Star Wars, Like, I mean, Alien has similar tones. At the very beginning, their title sequence is very cool. It's a very slow, creeping theme, and the letters for the theme just kind of fall in line by line until it finally reveals the title of the movie. But with Star Wars, it's that blast, Now we know it is like the Fox fanfare going into the Star Wars theme written by John Williams, but it's that blast of the horns and then the text Star Wars. Like, that's what sets it as a Star Wars movie. Like, every Star Wars movie so far has had that, and I think that's why a lot of people are upset, because it's that tradition. It's not a Star Wars movie unless it has that, or at least not so far. But this one might break the tone, but maybe that's okay.
Well, I think it is. I think it has to be okay. One of the reasons why it doesn't make sense, just laying it out there, is that there's a lot of extra episodic content, thinking of the video games, TV shows, like TV, just there are crawls. The comic books have crawls in them for heaven,
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was funny, actually. I didn't expect them in the comics, but I'm like,
it makes sense. Most Marvel comics have a little quick brief when you're looking at the credits of the comic, and yeah, if it's a Star Wars comic, you're obviously going to do it, stylistically. So yeah, we have a lot of extra episodic content that's already involving the crawl. So, why wouldn't it end up in this already? I think most video games that I've played, I think that's where most of my experience with extra episodic stuff comes from, is just in the video game world, and yeah, it just seems like it's already been kind of established that the crawl is just, it's part of Star Wars and it has to happen.
It's bizarre to think about it without it, because, I think the question you have to ask is, how else are they going to start the movie? Are they just going to open up on a scene? That's really the only way to go about it. It's not like they can do the equivalent of a crawl in another way, because at that point they may as well just do the crawl, right? So there's not going to be any background. They're not going to give any context as to what's going on in the state of the galaxy, the role that the Empire is playing in the galaxy at this point, the characters involved in the story. We're not going to get any of that to start. So for anybody who hasn't seen Star Wars, they're just going to be going in cold. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's how the story is written, and maybe that's fine and dandy. But for me personally, as a person who likes to set things canonically in my mind, having read a lot of the books and seen all of the movies and read a lot of the comics, I have all of that in my head. So the crawl is a great way to put those things immediately into context, not leave it in this ambiguous space between movies. You know what I mean? It directly gives you an idea of where this is in time, what happened before, what's at stake, and who's at play.
It's funny that you kind of say that people are going to be coming in cold to this without the crawl, because that just makes it like every other movie out there. That joins the rest, the other 99.9% of movies that have ever been created or will be created.
Yeah, but those movies aren't in the greatest science fiction franchise of all time.
Ooh, those are fighting words, Jake.
Bring it on, Trekkies. You know what I mean? You can't really lump in Rogue One with normal movies, even if it has the more mature or graphic tones of your standard war film. It's still within the context of the Star Wars universe. It still contains those characters, contains the likenesses and, the antagonist, the protagonist. Like, there are familiar characters in this movie that we know of already. So we know that they're there because we're following this movie extra carefully. But anybody who is going into this movie not knowing anything about the Star Wars universe, this is the first Star Wars movie they've ever seen, maybe, like, none of that context is there. Like, they're not going to get any of that. And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe that matters more to me because I know the importance of all these things. But maybe even for somebody who has seen A New Hope, like they saw the first Star Wars movie and that's it, they might recognize, Mon Mothma and be like, oh, she's in this movie, so, like, where does this take place? Like, I still think that people are going to be confused as to where this movie is supposed to take place, especially after Disney rebooting the franchise, putting out Episode 7, and not following that movie up with Episode 8. I honestly think that a lot of people are going to be confused, and once you're at the theater with your ticket and your popcorn, that really doesn't matter. That ticket's already sold. But I think giving people an idea of where things are happening in the timeline, hardcore fans like me or otherwise, is really important. And that's why I'm kind of bummed that they're choosing not to do a crawl for this movie.
I hear you. I hear where you're coming from. It's gonna be okay though.
I mean, I know that. I'm like, in my heart of hearts, I know it's okay. I know that I'm going to get by. Everybody else is going to get by without the crawl. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, at some point, somebody's going to recut this movie and put a crawl in, and I can just download that. But
just can't live without it. No, I think that it needs to be set apart. It needs to be set apart from the main story because these are not characters. I mean, yeah, you got Mon Mothma, you got some other people. I'm sure Vader's going to make an appearance. You have characters floating in from the main storyline here, but they need to make this very clear that, I mean, for the more cynical out there, this is going to be very clear. This is just going to be our Star Wars superhero movies. It's a way to constantly churn out content that's going to generate a certain amount of income for Disney.
I mean, they hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you could say the same thing about superhero movies, though. Like, people are going to get burned down in superhero movies, hypothetically, in the next
I already did.
You did. Didn't you not see Avengers or something?
Didn't see the second Avengers. Took me 3 tries to get through the first one.
Yeah, that's a lot of tries because I love the Avengers. I thought it was really fun.
Well, I liked some of the standalone movies at the time, so I'm like, well, I should get this in. And it just took a while. Kept falling asleep.
Oh, man. Yeah, the opening slow, at least for the first 5 minutes. But yeah.
No, I get what you're saying, though. I mean, I understand you need to set it apart. And this is the first standalone movie. They need to set that expectation that this is something different, that they are doing something with this, and they need to make it in the world and out of the story at the same time. You know what I mean? Like the continuing saga of the Skywalkers, that is the main storyline of Star Wars. And right now they're playing with the universe in the area closely surrounding the story of the Skywalkers, but they don't want to directly tie that in, probably in case that these standalone movies are sort of a detriment to that story. Like, if they're like, well, okay, that movie kind of flopped, people didn't like it, we don't have to keep doing these. They don't have to commit to that. They don't have to keep going with a certain storyline, or they can kind of just shrug that one off, stop marketing it, and then focus on the episodic movies more. You know what I mean? So I totally understand that. It's just like you said from the beginning, traditionally it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. Answer me this, though. You've seen the Star Wars holiday special, right?
Yep, once a year for probably the past 5 or 6.
Is there a crawl in that?
No.
I know.
But that's also, it's not official. To the point that George Lucas was trying to destroy it.
Yeah, I understand that. But have you seen the Ewok Adventure?
I have all of them. I think I watched Caravan of Courage as a kid, but I don't think I've seen all of the Ewok Adventure movies.
Is there a crawl in any of them?
Not that I can recall.
Yeah, I think it's just... It'd be so funny if they re-released the Ewok Adventure as a Star Wars story. The Ewoks, the Star Wars story.
Well, Warwick Davis has been in every movie since Return of the Jedi, so I don't see how that couldn't be a possibility, but I'm not sure he'd be game. He might be like, really, guys? Like,
We got to reboot the Ewoks adventure.
I would venture to guess that Warwick Davis would prefer to do a 9th or 10th Leprechaun movie before he would do another Ewok movie.
This is kind of like what I said when we talked about the Rogue One trailer, is that this, like, they're just going to reboot these movies, but they're just going to shoot all these Star Wars movies out into the universe that are just like a pet movie, you know, but it's going to be like, it's like Air Bud, but it's going to be with Ewoks. We're going to have like some Ewoks playing basketball at some point, slam dunking. We're going to see some really crazy stuff, I feel like. We're going to have a bunch of genres. That's what I'm saying, is that Rogue One is just Mission Impossible, but set in the Star Wars universe, and the Ewok Adventure reboot is going to be Air Bud 2.
Imagine them doing live-action reboots of all the Goofy movies with Jar Jar in Goofy's place.
Oh, okay, so we're going to have like a Goofy... oh, boy. That's like most of
Goofy skiing.
That's like the Clone Wars episodes, though, that feature Jar Jar. You know,
he's somewhat heroic in some of those.
He's heroic, but he's a fool.
Yeah,
he's a clown.
That's his role. That's his place.
God, he's the luckiest, and not Sith Lord character.
Right, he's not Snoke.
Oh God, don't even.
But what if he was?
Don't. You really lost that accent, you know. He's taken some vocal coaching classes in the years since. When's the last time you hear him speak? Episode 2, not counting Clone Wars.
No. Technically, he's in Revenge of the Sith. Very short appearance, I believe.
Doesn't he not speak though? Or is there like a deleted scene where he's on he's on Mustafar? He's the one that starts like the crazy meltdown of the reactor somehow. I know there's got to be deleted Jar Jar scene in there somewhere. He's just
I think he has an actual speaking scene in that movie, but it's possible that it was cut. But I've seen all of those scenes too.
He looks really sad or something. Isn't there a shot of him looking sad when someone dies, like when Padme dies or something like that, like in a funeral procession?
Yeah, at the funeral procession for sure. But I think he probably had. I'd be surprised if George didn't give him at least one line, because I think he really, really worked to redeem Jar Jar. Maybe not in the Clone Wars because he was still kind of goofy there.
You mean
because it's a kid's show?
Attack of the Clones? Oh, the kid's show. Okay.
Right, the Clone Wars TV show. But in the episodic movies, I think he really tried to give Jar Jar status and, you know, put him in a situation where he could really like show that he has like diplomatic skill. And, you know, he speaks to the entire Senate in certain points. So, like,
he also
he's
balances
not
a lot
useless.
of plates and juggles a lot of them, too. And he's dancing on top of a table trying to distract a lot of what's Watto's species when he goes to their planet.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's in the show. That's what I mean. Like, the cartoon one, whatever. But I think in the episodic movies, he really did try to make him a little more mature. I don't know if that was, like, him trying to protect Jar Jar. You think that George Lucas maybe was just like, I really don't like that they're making fun of my son, so I'm gonna toughen him up a little bit and, you
think Lucas
make him a better person.
Jar Jar as his son?
Yes.
He's got to defend him. He's got to toughen him up. So that was
Jar Jar.
That was the crawl, you know, which I think is not a huge deal. And there was that other little piece of news that came out back in July-ish that I feel like you took a lot of offense towards this one. I feel like
which one is this?
Like when I first mentioned it to you, you were like, oh, God, no. Like that was you when this happened. It was. Is
that how my texts read to you, Mike?
Well, because you use periods at the end of your text.
Oh, not this again. It's been months. Drop it.
I can't drop it because you haven't dropped the period yet.
I'm not dropping the period. Or the Oxford comma. You're getting it all.
I don't mind the Oxford comma. I do mind your stern tone via text, and I think a lot of the people you speak to via text would appreciate it as well. But
I'm going to give you my dad's number. He's going to blow you up with all caps.
I would on it. Oh yeah. I would take all caps over my dad's text any day. Ellipses randomly thrown in, words spelt wrong. Okay. Autocorrect. Sometimes he sends me texts that were meant for my mother that are about me. You know, it's just. I'm not even kidding. It's just. All right, let's get off of dad's.
I want to read those.
You know, you don't. We'll talk about it off the air.
All right. So what's this other news story from July?
This is kind of the blunt statement that was given by Rian Johnson.
Star Wars 8 director Rian Johnson discussed the new installment at Star Wars Celebration Europe.
At one of the last panels called Future Filmmakers, Star Wars Episode 8 writer and director Rian Johnson revealed that for the first time in Star Wars history, Episode 8 will begin right where Episode 7 left off, with no time jump.
When we started coming up with, I started coming up with the story, I realized that I wanted to... I didn't even really think about it, the notion that we were going to end up breaking kind of a long-standing Star Wars tradition, and for the first time, this movie is going to start right where the last one left off.
That makes it the first Star Wars movie not to have a significant amount of time between episodes. For example, there was approximately 30 years between Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So it'll be interesting to see a Star Wars movie where no time has elapsed.
Yeah, so what's up with that?
Well, okay, so quick for everybody at home. Star Wars Episode 7. Spoiler alert. Turn it off now if you haven't seen it yet. I don't know why you haven't, but it ends with Rey on top of the island holding Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber out to Luke Skywalker, who she has found. Mm-hmm. And Luke has given her this weird look. And cut to credits. And that's where we're going to start up the next movie again.
Yeah.
When they started filming Episode 8 and they did all those Instagram posts and everything, that they were shooting on the island, I think I said to you, I was like, oh, does this mean they're picking up right on that island? Like, are they? And that was, we were kind of tossing it back and forth, and then sure enough, it's fact at this point.
I think we can assume that.
So tell me,
the production teaser that they put out kind of alluded to that as well. It's where those stills were taken. We saw the stills, then we saw the production teaser, and then Rian Johnson just kind of came out and said, "Yep, it's kind of what's going down." So I don't know. I don't love that either.
This one, why do you not love this?
Well, again, it's tradition. I think. Again, I think a lot of what I said about Rogue One sort of applies here as well. The crawl is great for setting the stage and sort of the atmosphere of the galaxy and exactly what is occurring and what's happening where. And, it's a good way to show that time has elapsed and that, we don't have to see every single moment of the story to know what's going on. It provides a bit of a buffer so that when you get into the next movie, that there's kind of a hole in the story. And I think the hole in the story so far have really given the story room to breathe. There's ambiguity there as to what happened in this time. What happened between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? I would love to know exactly everything that they did to prepare for their assault on Jabba's palace, but that ambiguity and where did Luke get his training in that time? How did he become a Jedi Knight? All of those things are important to the story, but it's also sort of up to interpretation until filled in later, generally by another form of media. So whether it be the comics or the books or perhaps a standalone movie like we're seeing now, I think those are great. So what we're getting now is this kind of, last time on Star Wars moment. It kind of picks it up like an 80s or 90s sitcom where, there's this big dramatic scene. So, of course, this means it's going to be a double episode. And we'll see you next time, and we'll pick up right where it left off. And, all that I can imagine is that they're essentially going to reshoot that scene again and then just go from there. And, I want to know what Luke has to say to her up on that rock, but is that something that could not be done in a flashback at some point, later on? I feel like there would be a way to tell that story without immediately picking up where it left off, because otherwise, it doesn't, I don't know. It's different. It's untraditional. And that's what I think makes me uncomfortable. But more than anything else, I like that ambiguity and that buffer that sort of gives space between the movies and gives us room to sort of imagine things and talk about things.
I think, it definitely, that buffer is really nice because it gives you just so much room for that expanded universe to kind of just expand even further and for new mediums to come out. And I mean, wherever the comics take us, whatever happens in between there. And I mean, we have to also understand that there's still time, for things to happen, in between there. I mean, we're just talking about picking up where Rey leaves off and with Luke. I mean, there's presumably while Rey is traveling to go see Luke, things are happening. And that's,
but that's not a huge amount of time.
It's not. It's not a huge amount of time, but other things are definitely going to be happening in that. And my assumption is that the credits, the crawl will go. We have the outer space. We're going to pan down, and we'll see some other scene, and then we'll move to Rey and Luke on the hill. Like I feel like it's not going to be like I think one of the seasons of Breaking Bad ended on a cliffhanger like that, where just like it stops. Or any episode of Breaking Bad where there's like a huge amount of action or like something really crazy about to happen, and then the next shot, like the next episode is going to open right where that one left off. That's what it feels like, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be that. And I do think there's going to be more things to find out that happen. We don't know how long Rey was traveling to find Luke for. I mean, it's hyperspace, so who knows? It could have been very short, but stuff had to happen on the on Leia's side of things, and Kylo Ren's off doing his own thing now. He's going to get training. Stuff's happening.
That's the thing. I feel like this stuff would take a lot more time than it would take to travel through hyperspace to this island. Like it can't be so far out of the way that it's taking, months and months worth of time, or enough time for other parts of the story to seriously progress. Because if Kylo's going off to get trained and she's going to get training herself, as far as like movies go, there's going to be a point where they reconvene and like the two of them spar off again, this time stronger than they were before. So this is my fear. My fear is that they'll open it back up where the last movie left off. And then at some point they're going to have to convey that time has passed, and they're just going to do some sort of cheesy time passing thing, not a montage, which would kind of be hilarious. A training montage would be funny. But I feel like something's going to have to cue that time has passed. And
maybe like a Lucas wipe, just kind of a...
Yeah, but I mean, that's usually changing scene. Like, the Lucas wipes are iconic, and that would, they've been really good about using things like that in these newer movies to sort of, pay homage to the previous style of filmmaking that George used to make these movies great. But I don't think that would signify that enough time has passed. So I have an idea that I think could work. They open up on the island, and that scene plays out. They finish that scene, the scene that, very well could have been the end of episode 7. At that point, and then they go into the credit, the opening crawl from there. Keep the crawl.
Where's the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away? Where does that go?
They don't have that. Instead, they use the part from last time. So they finish that scene out, and then they do the crawl. They explain that time has passed, and these are things that have happened, and this is what the First Order is doing now, and we rejoin Rey in our training, all that stuff. That kind of thing. Because otherwise, how do you show that time has passed in the Star Wars universe? Maybe I'm not inventive enough. Maybe I think I'm too conservative when it comes to Star Wars storytelling. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm worried about it, because I don't want it to just be like, we have to just suspend our disbelief that all of these major plot points that are happening now happened within a short amount of time after the large plot points of the last movie.
Well, I do think you're right. You are a conservative Star Wars storyteller. But I mean, listen to what you just said. You just talked about throwing a huge Star Wars tradition out of the way, in order to kind of maintain a Star Wars tradition. It's weird. It's like a weird compromise. You're like, okay, I want to get rid of the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
I don't want that. I would much prefer that they start the entire movie off with that.
You're in like stage 3. You're bargaining at this point. You're like, okay, I'll get rid of the long time ago as long as you give me a little gap in their training so that we can fit some more comic series in there.
Oh, okay. How about this, Mike? Okay. A long time ago in a galaxy far away, and then they open up on Luke and Rey again. And then they do the crawl, and then they do the rest of the movie.
Here's the thing. I don't care about any of this. As you might assume, Like, no, this is gonna be fine. Like, I if it opens up on that mountain again and we start right up again on that scene, and then we cut to whatever the First Order's doing, and Kylo Ren's landing to meet up with Snoke, who actually turns out to be the size of my pinky finger. How awesome would it be if Snoke was a little man, just like a little, like a tiny dancing man, you know, just like a.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Just. But no, it's just gonna be like. It's fine. We're just going to pick up there, and that's the way it's going to be, you know, like it's going to give us a tighter story. And I think that tighter story is a part of a bigger scheme that's going on here, which is that as many cynics and optimists also have been kind of going on, Star Wars is going to be going on forever at this point. Like there was that really morbid article that was like Star Wars, like you're never going to see the end of Star Wars. Like people are like, oh, I can't wait to Episode 9 is going to be great, you guys. Episode 9, like finally some closure. No, because they're going to do another trilogy and another spinoff and another whatever, and it's going to go on forever and ever and ever. And so you'll never see the end of Star Wars. You'll never have that closure unless you happen to hit it at the end of a trilogy, if that's the way things are going. Because maybe we don't even know if we're getting a trilogy now. You know, we're just getting episodes at this point. And the whole idea of trilogies are just going to go away. I mean, we can argue that in a different episode, but I'm not going to say I'm a believer in that. I believe in trilogies, you know, I think. But hey, if they didn't, I'm okay with it. Let's say
I mean, to me, you can think about it that way. You can think the morbid way about it. I did for quite a while. I'm like, oh god, this is scary. I wanted Star Wars to come back, and now it is, and now I'm never going to see it all. And oh my gosh, my life is worthless. But at the same time, like, I know that at least for now, the plan is to have new Star Wars stories coming out as long as I live. So as long as I live in this world, I can escape it and get into this fictional alternate reality where ninjas with light swords attack other ninjas with other light swords.
I think they're more samurais than anything.
And yeah, they do flips and stuff. Don't argue with me.
Don't talk about the prequels. Not right now. Some other time, but not now. I don't want to think about those lightsaber fights.
It's nice to think that Star Wars will always be there. So what if I don't get to see it all? At some point, like, I'm going to be like, oh, this is kind of getting out of the stuff that I kind of enjoyed. It's like Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy is my favorite band. Now Fall Out Boy doesn't make Fall Out Boy songs for me anymore. They make Fall Out Boy songs for new Fall Out Boy fans. It could happen the same way with Star Wars. I hope that it doesn't. I hope that I can go my entire life with new Star Wars content that I love and that I enjoy, and that I can die knowing that everything that they made was pretty good. Well, I just hope that they don't continue making stuff to the point that it sucks and that I hate it. Because that will be even worse. That's what I don't want to live with.
Well, don't misunderstand me when I talk about Star Wars going on forever. What I'm talking about when I talk about that is that we're packing the story together. We're tying it up and not leaving a lot of space in between, because there's a lot of stories they want to get to. Maybe they don't want Rey to be 30 by the time this trilogy wraps up. Maybe they don't. Maybe they want, they don't want time to pass. They want her to be a kid. How old is she in episode 7? 19?
Something like that.
And Kylo Ren's like 21 or 23 or something like that. No, he's like 20.
There's older. There's an age gap of like 5 or 6 years or something. I can't remember my time.
Yeah. Regardless, she's a teenager. She's not 20 yet in Force Awakens, and maybe they want her to stay that way. Maybe this trajectory they have for this trilogy is there, and I think that's what I mean when I talk about how we're getting a tighter trilogy, we're getting a tighter Star Wars universe, because they have plans for Rey, because they have plans for all of these characters or whatever. And also there's this other idea I was kind of toying with, and because I think about like, okay, what's the gap that a lot of people think about, besides the gap between episodes 3 and episode 4, which we're sort of getting a filler for Rogue One. But I think one of the most infamous gaps is between episodes Empire and Return of the Jedi. Being because that's when Han was frozen in carbonite, and that's when in the 90s Shadows of the Empire was introduced.
Yeah.
You never read Shadows of the Empire though, right?
No. Did they make a game based on that story?
It was a movement. It was not just like it was a book, it was a video game, it was an action figure set, it was everything. It was comic books. it was like that was like the right, but
it was sometime in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s.
Yeah, and it was like a part where like I think it was a weird bump in the Star Wars mania that happened then with the special editions. But but I mean, I think when I look back on the reactions, I think a lot of people hated it. Not the video game is nostalgic,
right.
But I think like Dash Rendar, that character, just they saw him as a knockoff Han, just like some dude that was just kind of existing and, drove a ship that kind of looked like his. And yeah, I mean, I had a lot more fonder memories of it, but that was probably because I was, I don't know, like 10 when I was reading it. And
yeah.
It was probably the same reason why I enjoyed Courtship of Princess Leia, because like, I recognize these characters and it's filling in a gap in my mind where where Return of the Jedi ended. But yeah, maybe it's just they're deciding that we don't need these huge fillers in between, and we don't need to know every single little thing, or maybe just that. Not even that we don't need to know it, just it doesn't need to be there. We can show this now because we have infinite amount of time to tell this story. So we don't need to have in-between quels because we can just have movies forever.
Maybe, but I still like that room to think about those stories, because they're not going to make those stories right away, and that's what makes Star Wars fun. It's that fan mentality, like comparing theories and coming up with options as to what certain characters do when they're out of the main storyline, or like, did they actually die or did they not? Like, those things are fun to think about and to play with. So for me, that's my main gripe. Like Rogue One, it's not going to ruin anything for me. As long as the movie is solid, that's really what I'm going to remember. I'm not going to remember what never was. I'm not going to remember what ambiguity there could have been, because that's not something that was like left open for me to think about. It's just that it isn't there for me to think about, and that kind of bums me out. But it's fine. It's whatever.
No, don't get sad about it now. Now you're in depression. You're in the stage of depression. We're going to get you out there. We're going to get you to acceptance by the end of this conversation. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm excited for both of these movies. I think I don't know. I really, honestly, until you brought this back up, I hadn't really thought about it in a couple months. I think I still have relatively the same feelings about it that I did when I read about both of these stories in June or July, whenever that was. But it's at the heart of it. I'm excited for new Star Wars movies. I'm excited primarily for Rogue One. I'm excited to see what they can do with that and just how far they push that in a new direction. And then, of course, I'm excited to see what happens with the characters that we've grown so fond of in Episode 7 and Episode 8. So, how about you? I mean, are you excited for Rogue One? Like, we've talked about it quite a bit. Are you excited to see that, or are you more looking forward to Episode 8?
Definitely Episode 8, and I'm really hoping that they do a teaser at least. Early for Rogue One, because we got a year advance notice on that teaser for Episode 7, so I'm looking more forward to Episode 8, just because like I've grown so attached to the idea of Rogue One just being such a not Star Wars thing. Like I'm divorcing it in my mind from Star Wars in a way. Like obviously there's Death Stars involved, and there's Star Destroyers and the Stormtroopers and Death Troopers. Maybe the only lightsaber we'll see is Darth Vader's, if that. But that's cool with me. Like, I'm okay with seeing Rogue One in a different way than I've seen my other Star Wars movies. And the same way I'm okay with Episode 8 picking up where we left off, because you could argue nothing matters and it's all entertainment and it's whatever. But I think there's something more to be said about evolution and like getting away from the idea of tradition. I think tradition can kind of limit us in a lot of ways. And I think, I don't know, it's good that there's not going to be a crawl, because we're going to be able to see Star Wars without it. We're going to be able to, I don't know. It's just tradition can be confining, and the second you break outside of it,
I believe you. I think everything is going to be fine. I think I'm going to forget about it in time. After these movies come out, things will be different. I will no longer be able to hold to the current tradition saying that every movie has a crawl and that every movie, takes place a certain amount of time afterwards. I mean, they haven't even necessarily said that episode 8 won't have a crawl. It just doesn't make sense to me as to how they're going to fit that in if they pick up exactly where they left off. So maybe my idea will work.
I think my idea is better. I think just, not Luke and Rey, and then after the crawl, and then cut to Luke and Rey. Lucas wiped to Luke and Rey.
Yeah, but that means no crawl in episode 8, which...
Why no crawl? Why no crawl?
Well, where are they going to put the crawl?
Right before. No, that's what I'm saying. So crawl ends, pan down, Kylo Ren arriving in front of Little Man Snoke, and then Lucas wipe to...
And then back to the island.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's abrupt and jarring, and sure, it's a weird way to cut into two characters' introduction because... Whatever. I mean...
I guess it does show the juxtaposition of the two, Force wielders and their masters, but
maybe
I don't know. I guess when I don't anticipate
a cold cut to just two people staring at each other like a wide shot. I anticipate panning up from the bottom of Luke's robes or something like that, or from like behind and panning around, like just some artistic shot or something like that.
I guess when Rian Johnson said that this movie is going to start right where the last one left off, plus, the production shots and the production teaser, like I immediately think that they're going to immediately start the movie exactly where the last one left off. And that doesn't leave any room for a crawl, especially time-wise. Like, you can't really illustrate a bunch of time between the two unless you're talking about the time that it took for Rey to get there and everything else that's happening while that's happening. Like,
right.
It just doesn't seem like that's a very useful crawl, but who knows?
No, because I mean that's why I think it's important to remember that there's other things going on while Rey is traveling. Like that's where that crawl can happen, and also to catch us back up to speed. Anybody, because somebody said the other day, it might have been the We Hate Movies podcast. Check them out if you haven't already. Hilarious dudes. Talking about how there's no way that episode 8 premiere is going to be as big as episode 7. And there's no way it's going to match the success of episode 7. Sorry if I'm miscrediting it to the wrong people, but yeah, I heard that uttered in a podcast recently, and I think it's totally valid. I don't think the hype is going to be as crazy again because, all right, we saw a good Star Wars movie. Force Awakens was more than fine, and now we're going to get something. And so I don't think there's going to be that. It's going to be certainly hyped, but not as important, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be able to see that other things were going on, and that's where that crawl comes. It's going to tell us what was happening while Rey was traveling. It's going to tell us where Kylo Ren is, and those casual or new Star Wars fans who are just coming into the theater, because they exist. They're few, but they exist. They're going to need to be caught up on the story again. It's going to be like, coming in on a TV show, which is, I guess the point that you're trying to make is the sad part of the whole thing is that it's going to be like a TV show. This is Breaking Bad. We're coming back after next week. Although, I mean, Breaking Bad didn't even do recaps. So,
can I illustrate something for you? I of course have all of the DK Star Wars books for these new series, just so I can get a grip on where things are and how they're made.
Yes.
I recently got the one of the latest ones. It's called Star Wars Complete Locations. Mm-hmm. It's a really great book. It actually shows has a lot of information about planets and ships and systems and stuff. But what I think is the most interesting is this map of the galaxy. It's an actual illustrated map of the galaxy, and it has all of the rings starting at the core, going out to the outer rim and the unknown regions. So a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the movies happens all in the same place.
In the galaxy?
Yeah.
I think that's what's important to think about, because a lot of people are like, where did the Force Starter come from? Where did they go? How did they come there? How did nobody know about this? Because there's a whole galaxy to go chill out. And the outer rim is the outer rim, unknown regions. Yeah. You can just go slink around out there like a creep.
I was hoping to see in here, exactly where Ahch-To is located. This is the planet that Luke was hiding on in isolation. It's not on there. They do have stuff in here from The Force Awakens. So Takodana, the planet where Maz made her little hideaway for smugglers and whatnot, her little bar. Her place is there in like the Expanse region. This is actually not too far away from a lot of the stuff they're familiar with. So I would say that Takodana is halfway between Jakku and Bespin or Hoth, which are right next to each other. So that's kind of interesting. I wish that they had information here about where Luke was. I wish they would have included that. Just to kind of give an idea of how long it would have taken her to get there, because that is kind of ambiguous. Like, it could have taken her a very long time for her and Chewie to find Luke wherever he was. But we just don't know. So I think exactly what they're going to do regarding the crawl and how they're going to move the story forward and what everybody else is doing, like, I think all of that depends on how long Rey and Chewie were away. So I don't know what to expect. I'm optimistic. That's really all I can say about it. I don't want to be too much of a downer, because I am really excited about all these things. I'm already buying the toys for all these stupid movies. So take my money, take all of it.
Yeah, they're gonna get it. There's no doubt about it. They're getting your money. They're getting my money. Yeah. And they'll keep getting my money.
Yeah. So in the show notes for this episode, I'm definitely going to I'm going to put links to the videos for the Rogue One trailer, anything that is out so far promoting that movie. I would highly suggest that Mike not look at the show notes for this episode, but for anybody that is interested in that, that's going to be in there.
Yeah, and if you have anything you want to just let us know about, just tweet at us at Bantha Fodder FM. Just tell us what we got right, what we got wrong, what your thoughts are on this tradition and what tradition means to you. Just tell us, because I just need to know there's people in the world like me that don't care.
Yeah, I think that's why we put this out there. We've been away for a little while, and I was telling you this before the show, but it's interesting that since we've recorded last, I've been told by maybe 4 different people in real life, like, friends of mine who have had friends come to them and say that they enjoy our show, which is really cool. These are people I don't know. They're somewhat within my like real life group of people. Like, these are people that I actually could meet in real life. We share friends, but I don't know who they are. They don't know who I am, but they enjoy our show. So for those people that are listening, I really appreciate all the feedback that you're relaying on to us. Feel free to tweet us anytime. I'm Jacob Tender on Twitter. Mike is Mike Comite on Twitter. Feel free to reach out. And let's just talk about Star Wars. I mean, that's the fun part. Like, it's no fun to talk about Star Wars through people. I think it's fun to talk about Star Wars with people. So go ahead and reach out to us. You can find links to all the stuff that we're talking about in this episode at banthafodder.fm/episode/12, number 12. And we're on track. We're doing well. We were keeping a maybe once every 2 week kind of pace for a while.
Yeah.
But I still think that one a month, with as busy as our lives are and all the things that we have going on, that's still pretty good. I think by the end of this year, we're still going to breach 1 episode per month for our first entire year as a podcast. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it.
Is there anything else going on in your life that you want people to check out, Mike?
No. Go buy my album.
Yes. Go buy his album, oldbestfriend.bandcamp.com. Very, very good music. This is how I found Mike. This is how I fell in love with the man. I knew his music before I knew him. And now that I know him, it's a perfect extension of him. And I've related to that a lot as well. I think that's why we're as close as we are. I seriously admire Mike as a musician. I'm not just saying that to support a buddy, because I was a fan first. So grab his music if you can. It's really, really, really good.
You're too nice.
I mean it.
Oh, well, thank you. That's all for this time. If you think of an episode topic, if you think of something that would be great to hear a cynic like me debate with an optimist like Jake, hit us with that too, because we're always looking for topics, and we got ideas, but we we like to just talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to do it more often. So we'll see. This is rambly, and half this will get cut.
We will cut it, most of it, but we will also talk more. Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye. Sorry, I'm drinking a heavy beer, and it's gassy. Don't put that as the...
Good luck, buddy.